Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I grew up in an ordinary blue-collar family in a small Midwestern town. Dad welded trailers in a factory on the edge of the interstate. Mom taught part-time English at the community college, filled the rest of her hours with neighborhood volunteer work, and organized every holiday meal like the guests were royalty. From the outside, and honestly from the inside too, we looked solid. The house was paid down enough that refinancing didn't keep them awake at night. I was the oldest kid, 21, home from my junior year at a state university, and trying to save money by living with my parents for the summer. One Saturday in June, I came in from the garage to grab a drill bit from Dad. He was fixing a gutter that had pulled away during a spring storm. Mom was in the kitchen with two of her tennis club friends, glasses of wine already half empty, even though it wasn't yet noon. I wasn't trying to snoop, but the door from the garage opens right into the breakfast nook. I heard Mom laugh, louder and sharper than usual. One of her friends asked if she ever worried that Dad would catch her little side project. Mom said, clear as day, that Dad was too stupid and trusting to notice anything that wasn't right in front of him. All three laughed. The friend followed up by asking if she was still crazy about Frank. Mom didn't deny it. Frank is Dad's fishing buddy. He's 51, divorced, and spends most weekends driving a new pickup he brags about. My stomach dropped so fast I felt dizzy. I'd never heard my mom call my dad stupid. I'd never thought about her cheating, never even seen them argue for more than a minute. I went back outside, handed Dad the drill bit, and tried to act normal. But every time I looked at him, that sentence replayed in my head. I sat with the information for 2 days. I didn't sleep much. I kept seeing Dad on the ladder, clueless, trusting the woman who was laughing behind his back. I tried to come up with any chance I'd misheard, but the tone in her voice was unmistakable. On the third night, I decided if I was going to do anything, I needed proof. Dad is loyal to a fault. If I just told him what I'd overheard, he might think I'd misunderstood. I also knew confronting Mom without evidence would give her time to hide things. I bought a cheap nanny cam online and hid it in a pot of fake succulents in the living room. It recorded motion-triggered clips to a memory card. I borrowed a GPS tracker from a friend who used one for his teen driver and stuck it under the back bumper of Mom's car. For audio, I placed an old digital voice recorder under the passenger seat. It felt sneaky, but I kept telling myself I was protecting Dad. The first week, nothing. Mom came home after her evening class, watched TV, went to bed. The second week, Dad was away taking care of Grandma because she was feeling poorly. Wednesday at 11:47 p.m., the nanny cam pinged my phone. I opened the feed in the dark and saw a man letting himself in through the side door. Same height and build as Frank. The camera isn't high resolution, but I recognized the jacket he wears on fishing trips because it has a bright orange stripe on one sleeve. They went up the stairs together. He left a little after 2 a.m. The GPS showed Mom's car parked in our driveway the whole time. I copied the clip to my laptop, labeled it, and kept recording. Over the next 12 nights, Frank visited 4 more times. Twice he arrived in Mom's car. Twice he used his own. The voice recorder grabbed pieces of conversation I wish I could forget. Inside jokes about Dad falling asleep in his chair. Plans for a weekend conference Mom had told Dad was mandatory for professional development. She called Frank my real partner. They talked about hiding credit card bills. She mentioned her 50th birthday party Dad was already planning. Big backyard event, catered food, live quartet, the works. She joked she might use the party to break the news that she wanted a break from Dad. Frank said the shock would be hilarious. At that point, I decided I had enough. I put all the files, videos, audio, GPS logs onto a flash drive. Dad was in the garage rebuilding a carburetor on a Saturday morning. I shut the door, told him I needed to show him something, and handed him the drive. Dad's hand shook a little when he clicked the first video. He didn't say a word for almost 20 minutes. He watched every clip, checked timestamps, clicked through the GPS maps. When it ended, he sat back on the workbench stool, rubbed the bridge of his nose, and whispered, "How long?" I said I'd only discovered it 2 weeks earlier. Leave this with me. Not a word to your mother. From tonight on, we act like none of this exists. Until I say otherwise, he said. I tried to argue we should confront her immediately, but he kept his eyes on the concrete floor, jaw set. He said the worst thing we could do was give her time to hide money or spin a story. He told me to treat the next few days like any ordinary stretch of summer. Same routines, same small talk, no hint that her secret was out. Then he ruffled my shoulder in a silent thanks and dismissal gesture and walked inside to help Mom set the table, greeting her with a peck on the cheek that nearly made me gag. Those 3 weeks were the longest of my life. Over breakfast, Dad still buttered her cinnamon toast, still texted her love you on his lunch break, still laughed at the sitcom reruns they always watched after he got home from work. Mom floated along in blissful ignorance, bragging about the 50th birthday party she'd planned down to the color of the linen napkins. On the surface, nothing changed. Beneath it, I could feel tension humming like a live wire. And every time I thought I might blurt something, Dad gave me a quick shake of the head. Hold the line. Behind the scenes, he was relentless. On the first Monday, he took an extra long lunch hour, drove to a neighboring town, and hired a lawyer whose specialty was fault divorces. The lawyer walked him through a to-do list. Copy every tax return, move new paychecks into an account in his name only, freeze joint savings so Mom couldn't drain them once she sensed trouble. Dad followed. The night before the party, Dad paid the remaining party invoices first thing the next morning, so nothing would look suspicious. Caterer, quartet, portable restroom rental, even the floral arc Mom insisted on. When the crew arrived, he was out there helping them stake the tent, joking about weather apps predicting rain. The afternoon heat was brutal, but guests poured in wearing summer linen and pastel dresses. Trays of canapes circulated, champagne corks popped, the string quartet eased into a Vivaldi piece. I lingered near the dessert table, watching Dad glide through the crowd with his easy smile. When Frank arrived in his tailored sport coat, smelling of expensive cologne, Dad greeted him like an old buddy. "Good to see you, man," and even complimented his watch. Frank looked smug. Mom looked radiant. Only I noticed the tiny bulge in the envelope inside Dad's jacket. At 6:15, once everyone had a glass in hand, Dad tapped a spoon against the stem of a flute. The quartet trailed off. Conversations hushed. He thanked the guests for celebrating such a big milestone, praised Mom's planning, and said that reaching 50 should be about honesty and loyalty. He paused and let the silence grow until I felt my pulse in my ears. Then he lifted the envelope so the crowd could see it and said, calm and clear, "Mary, my dear, that's your birthday gift. These are divorce papers citing adultery. They come with evidence, should anyone doubt the reason. You've been served." The reaction was instant. A collective gasp. One champagne flute shattered against the flagstones, whispers escalating into open chatter. Mom's face drained of color. Her hand shook so violently the envelope rattled. Frank's eyes darted toward the gate like he was calculating an escape route. Dad turned back to the guests, thanked them again, invited them to stay and enjoy the fully paid catering, and added, "I'll be leaving now." Then he walked down the stone path, through the side gate, and into his truck where I was already waiting. We didn't go home that night. Dad drove us 2 hours to the seaside. We grabbed vending machine sandwiches, sat on the beds, and watched the flood of texts and photos from the party. After 10 minutes, he shut his phone off and said, "The pretending was harder than serving the papers. At least now the facts are out there." A few friends say the birthday party reveal was over the top, and that I should have confronted Mom in private, instead of turning her party into a spectacle. Maybe they're right, but waiting until that day stopped her from hiding money and twisting the story. Dad wanted one clear public break, and he got it. Am I the a-hole for helping Dad serve my mom divorce papers at her 50th birthday party instead of confronting her in private? She chose to make a spectacle of her lies, so why shouldn't the truth come out in the same spotlight? If she's been cheating or betraying OP's father, then it's not OP's job to protect her image. Was it brutal? Yeah, but sometimes brutal is the only language liars understand. She got exactly the kind of attention she cultivated, just not the kind she wanted. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Mom is obviously wrong for the affair, but serving papers at her milestone party was still over the line. A private sit-down the next morning would have hurt less people and avoided turning the whole thing into neighborhood gossip. You both went for maximum humiliation, and that's not a great look. Yes, your mom cheated, but helping turn her birthday into a public shaming was revenge, not justice. Serving her privately would have still frozen accounts and started the process. You and your dad escalated things for drama, and that makes you complicit in the mess. Everyone sucks here. Your mom for whatever she did to deserve divorce, obviously. But also you and your dad for picking the most public and emotionally charged setting to do something that could have been done with at least a shred of dignity. It wasn't about justice at that point. It was about maximum impact. And while I understand the anger, it still feels like emotional shrapnel hit everyone at the party. I, 28 female, got married to my fiancé, 29 male, last August. Brother-in-law, 35 male, is his only sibling. For the guest list, we made very clear to both our families that we were inviting only people we were close with. 3 weeks before the wedding, brother-in-law RSVPs that he, his wife, 2 kids, and his mother-in-law were attending. I told him his mother-in-law was not invited. He started arguing that she may take the seat of one of his kids, or that he would pay for her seat. I explained that she was merely an acquaintance, seen her 5 times before. I asked fiancé if he wanted the mother-in-law there. He said no. Brother-in-law messaged me saying his wife was pregnant and very hurt that her mother was not considered family by fiancé and me. I DM'd wife and apologized if I made her feel bad, and explained it has nothing to do with her mom, but we wanted only people close to us in our wedding, and that she and the kids were family and very important to us. She said she invited her mom to help with her kids. I told her we had hired babysitters and had activities planned for them. An hour later, wife called fiancé to say I was rude to her and told her I didn't care about her mom. Fiancé told her that was not true. He saw the DMs and repeated everything I said before word by word. Brother-in-law then called fiancé, demanding an explanation on our rude behavior towards wife. Fiancé told him to see the messages and that the call was recorded so he could see there was no rudeness at all. Brother-in-law refused. Brother-in-law and wife said they were not attending the wedding if they were not considered family, blocked me from social media, and told everyone how hurt they were by my actions. I was very confused as that was the exact opposite of what I told them in our conversation. A few of fiancé's aunts and uncles contacted me telling me I should invite the mother-in-law, that I wouldn't even notice her there, and that it was the right thing to do. I got pissed and just answered it was our event and that we'd choose who we wanted there. Brother-in-law, wife, and kids didn't attend the wedding. I was very upset as how they were portraying me and the situation, so I uploaded the screenshots from our conversation, and this made them very mad, as it proved their narrative was untrue. They cut contact with everyone, saying that we were toxic and that they cannot be around people that do not consider them family. Last week, brother-in-law sent me an email saying I should apologize to his wife, as she is really hurt by me posting the DMs, that she almost had a miscarriage because of me, and asked what did his mother-in-law do to me for me not to want her at the wedding. I told him I was not apologizing for whatever story they have created in their minds a year later. So, was I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. The audacity of someone RSVPing to something and saying, not even asking, that you're bringing someone else along. So, basically, people who were going to be guests at your wedding tried to invite another guest from their family. Someone who is an extra extension who you did not invite to your wedding because they are not a part of your family, who you would invite to the wedding. They have then gone on to make you out as a villain, even so far as trying to accuse you of K-ing their fetus. No, you're absolutely not wrong, and you should not apologize to them. I would put that email in a folder though, in case it comes up later, but so it's not immediately in your face every day. Not the a-hole. What a bizarre request. You don't get to take everyone special to you to another person's event. And for her to blame an almost miscarriage on you is just a horrific thing to say to someone. My husband, Jay, 34 male, and I, 29 female, got married last month. The wedding day was great. It was a beautiful ceremony and had a great party overall. We had an after party at a local karaoke bar where some family and friends joined. My now sister-in-law, C, 31 female, was also there. I had called it a night around 1 a.m., but Jay returned to the bar after walking me to a friend's condo. He sat down next to C and was having a heart-to-heart with her. He said he was so grateful that she was here and that he loves her. They were both crying and hugging. After they broke away from the hug, C glared at him and said, "No, you don't. You don't love me." Jay asked, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "You don't treat me like family. You treat your friends better than me. You had a party last night and didn't invite me." Jay tried to explain that there was no party last night. C claimed she saw on IG that there were friends over. My bridesmaids were all from out of town and were all staying at our house that night. So there was a gathering, but it was with people who were staying at our house. C did not want to listen to Jay and called him a liar, physically pushing him in the chest and shoving him out of his chair. To de-escalate, Jay left the bar, but C followed him to yell at Jay again. Jay walked away, decided it was time to call it a night, and went to the condo where I was resting. I slowly woke up when I hear belligerent yelling. Our nosy friend had brought sister-in-law over, pressuring Jay and her to make up, that it was our wedding night and this shouldn't be happening. C was shouting that she wasn't included in the wedding festivities, and how Jay doesn't treat his mom right, and that we asked for help to buy a house and asked for more money for the wedding. I instinctually intercepted and covered Jay. Sister-in-law's yelling more, and this time she attacks me, saying, "That girl has never done anything for my mom. She's never gotten her a gift, and the first gift she gets her is a used bread machine." I stared straight in her eyes and said, "You don't know anything." Jay's had it and did not tolerate her verbally attacking me, told her to leave and that they're done. We got home around 5 a.m. and cried until 8 a.m. as newlyweds. Sunday, Jay calls his mom and lets her know what happened. And immediately mother-in-law took sister-in-law's side and said that he's the older brother, he should understand his sister. On Monday, C called my husband to apologize. We find out that besides losing her crap towards me and Jay, she lost her literal crap at the bar: purse, wallet, phone, etc. Jay said he's forgiven her because he loves her, and it seems like she's learned her lesson. And at the end of the conversation, C also wanted to apologize to me, and Jay set the expectation that I would reach out when I was ready. It's been 3 weeks or so, and I have not reached out. So, am I the a-hole for not reaching out to listen to my sister-in-law's apology? Edit. I went out of my way to include his sister and her family in the wedding activities. 1. My husband had his 4 groomsmen picked out, but held off on asking the 4th friend since he was contemplating if he should have his brother-in-law as a groomsman. Brother-in-law and him are not close, but husband asked sister-in-law if she wanted to stand by him, and she declined, saying that that's not normal. I think she just wanted to wear a dress, which she could have. Anyways, he asked brother-in-law to be a groomsman instead, and we also asked the nieces to be our flower girls. I didn't want children at the wedding, much less in the bridal party, but we compromised and said family children only. 2. I had a spreadsheet of activities and who's involved, shared with all family members, sister-in-law included, and bridal party. 3. Every week leading up to the wedding, sister-in-law would call us to find out what the plan was, which was on the spreadsheet, but I held that in and just explained and told her what time to be where. 4. The day before our wedding, we had also planned a cultural tea ceremony. Brother-in-law and sister and family were over an hour late. This ceremony was hosted by my side of the family. Brother-in-law, as a groomsman, was supposed to partake in door activities and support the groom in the ceremony. He didn't arrive in time for that, and my husband had to last minute, maybe 1 hour before arrival, ask a friend to stand in. We're lucky to have such great friends. C and brother-in-law barely apologized when they arrived. It was a huge disrespect to my family when they traveled across the country to be here for the ceremony and wedding weekend. 5. There was no party that Friday night. It was dinner, and wedding party was invited. But a lot of people were tired, so they called it a night. Even mother-in-law left our house to go rest, and sister-in-law went shopping. But there were people staying at our house, so we fed them. But sister-in-law construed it to be a party that she was excluded from. Not the a-hole. She ruined your wedding night and she's sorry? I'd send her an invoice for the wedding. But I'm petty and love family drama. It keeps my blood pressure nice and high. Christ, what an embarrassment. Not the a-hole. Your sister-in-law obviously is, as is your mother-in-law. And, I would also like to point out, so is your nosy friend, who thought that you needed to make up with a drunk and belligerent a-hole on your wedding night. Your friend also owes you a massive apology for ruining your wedding night. I want to know about the used bread machine. Context about the used bread machine. For this past Mother's Day, We got mother-in-law a thrifted Zojirushi bread machine, since mother-in-law loves bread. She also loves shopping at Goodwill. It was in great condition, and mother-in-law seemed to really like it. Since the wedding night, mother-in-law gave the bread machine back to us. In a recent phone call with mother-in-law, we told her we're giving the bread machine back or it's going to donations. And mother-in-law said that she would use it and really liked it. It was just sister-in-law didn't want her to have a used machine. I'm 24 years old and have been in a relationship, dating and then marriage, with my 32-year-old husband for 3.5 years. From the very beginning, there were problems. You guys will read this post and think, "Girl, why didn't you get out sooner?" Well, I was young and stupid is my answer. I have no other excuse. When we first began dating, he still lived with his parents, and all his adult siblings also lived with him at home. One of them is a single mother to a young boy, so the boy lives under the roof too. They're regular Americans. It isn't some religious type of arrangement. It's just their parents are millionaires and have raised their children to believe they don't need to work or move out of their family home. As you can guess, he also didn't have a job and had no qualifications, not even high school. After about 8 months of getting sick of seeing him chilling around his parents' house whilst I busted my butt in med school, I told him he had to find a job and I helped him find one. I also invited him to move in with me, and in the end we began renting our own place as my apartment was too small. After all of this, him getting a job and moving out, one of his sisters began totally hating me. The sister who is a single mom. You see, whilst my idiot of a husband lived at home, she used him as a free built-in babysitter, and after he moved in with me, he no longer had as much time to spend with his nephew, or family for that matter. She totally hated this, and for years now has done everything in her power to act as though I'm some kind of disgusting animal. So, on to the main point here. My brother died a week ago today, very suddenly at the age of 29. To say my entire family is horrified and heartbroken is a total understatement. My husband was there to support me, however he showed little emotion over the actual death of my brother. And to be honest, I didn't expect much of a response because he's only ever met my brother 4 times, and my brother didn't really seem to like him and apparently told my parents that he seemed like a bum. Today, I've finally been mourning after feeling numb all week. My husband asked if his mom could go over and look at our new place. I forgot to mention, my head is all over the place. We signed a contract for a new rental property last week, so we have been living at our current home, however, have the keys to a new one and we're due to move in soon. I told my husband she could go and see the new house with him, but I didn't want visitors over to our current address because I wanted to mourn in peace. He responded with, "But I told Mom she could also come back to this house for some food afterwards." I'm not proud of this, but I totally blew my crap. I shouted at him and told him all I wanted was to mourn in peace, and that we have access to 2 houses now, so why can't they just stay at the new place and let me sleep, mourn? He then started also having a mental breakdown and told me he was doing everything he could to support me and I didn't appreciate him. He's done nothing to support me, aside from throwing tantrums all week about working full-time and having to move houses at the same time. He seems to think he's entitled to leave work for a period of time in order to move houses. He hasn't once sat down in the evening and asked me how I feel or how I am coping. The truth is, over the past few days, I had noticed he was acting different, but I didn't care. He's been very mopey and claiming he's tired and that he wishes he didn't have to work. He also used my brother's death as an excuse to get 4 days out of work and got angry with his workplace when they told him they wanted him back at work after those 4 days. He simply wanted the days off. He didn't care that it was my brother's death that got him those days off. He's always been like it. Looks for any excuse to avoid work. Now for the juicy part. He left our house to take his mom to see the new place, and an hour later came back with his parents and a suitcase. His dad came in first, after knocking on the door because for some reason my husband couldn't knock on his own door, and told me that my husband didn't think it was working anymore, and we could perhaps sit down in the future and resolve it. To be fair to his dad, he was very nice to me and polite. It's just he clearly has no ducking idea what a massive man-child his son is, and he enables the behavior too. All my husband said to me, while standing behind mommy and daddy like a sniveling toddler, was that he was so sorry, and that he was so stressed, and had decided to take time off working and was going back home to his parents. I'm not kidding any of you. I ducking wish I was. My brother died a week ago, and my husband has left me with a house and 2 dogs to live with his parents again and not work. We were trying for a baby. Thank God that didn't happen. I don't know what else to say here. We have just signed a 9-month contract to rent a new house. But thankfully, it's in his name, so I presume he will have to either take up tenancy or pay 9 months' worth of rent to get himself out of the agreement. Not my problem, I guess. I'm too numb. Run. Don't walk to a family law attorney. You have a problem. He just quit his job. He's living with mommy and daddy. He will have no income. You definitely do not want to end up paying him alimony. But you'll need a family lawyer quick to avoid it, because mommy and daddy's money won't show up on his taxes or in his bank accounts. I am so sorry for your loss, and divorces are hard even when they don't come on top of tragic deaths. I'm so sorry your husband was a man-child. I wish this could have happened differently for you, but I hope you come through better off for having shed him. See a therapist if you possibly can. It sounds like you could really use a person for venting and support right about now.